Hey everybody, how's it going? It's Russell Matthews and I'm back with another Canadian benefit update for you. Right from the very beginning of CRB, so many people who were against these kind of benefits came out and said, well, there's going to be so many people who fraudulently apply, and how are you going to keep track of that, and how are you going to get them to pay it back? And this makes sense. With the government spending this kind of money to send out to Canadians, you're going to want to make sure that this money is actually going to the correct people who are entitled to it. But I don't think that there's been a larger area of confusion than this. What will happen if someone fraudulently applies, and what will happen if I mistakenly apply fraudulently without knowing it? And in the news that I've watched, some of which I've covered on this channel, you can check out the description to see some of those older videos, but they don't really give a satisfying answer to this question. In broad terms, they said that if you applied mistakenly without knowing it, then you would only have to pay back the money and there wouldn't be any penalties. And if you knowingly applied when you weren't eligible, then they said there could be penalties and there could be some sort of criminal charges. But they never got into exactly what this looked like and how they were going to determine that this was what happened. And that didn't sit right with me. I thought to myself, hey, this is legal paperwork that's gone through the House of Commons, it's gone through Senate. There's got to be some writing and some solid information that actually outlines these features of the bill. So I thought, screw it, we're just going to go right to the source, and I sat down and read the 44-page Bill C-4, which is the bill that brought in these benefits. And lo and behold, I actually found something. Buried deep in the fourth part of the bill, there's a section that covers all of this. What fines you could see, what kind of penalties there could be, and how to determine that this is the case. There's a lot of information here, so for this video, we're just going to read through it so that we can get a broad understanding, and in future videos, I'm going to break this all down line by line to make sure you know exactly what's happening with your money. Speaking of which, if you're new to the channel, hey, how's it going? It's nice to meet you. My name's Russell, and I post videos on this channel about Canadians and their money. If there's any changes, updates, or new laws that come into effect that could affect you and your family's money, then you're going to find out about it here first. The overall goal is to bring this type of important information to Canadians as quickly as possible and as accurately as possible. So if that sounds interesting to you, or you just want to stay up to date with all these new CRB, CRSB, CRB, all the new regulations, and all the things that are changing about them constantly, then you're going to want to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. And while you're down there, hit the like button and turn it blue, because when you do so, hundreds of people who could be looking for this type of content and this type of information get to find it. And without wasting any more time, let's dive right into it and let's take a look at exactly what this bill says. If you're a geek like me and you actually enjoy reading through this sort of stuff, I'll link down in the description the link to this bill so you can read it for yourself. And what we're covering today is in part 4 right here under General. But we're just going to zoom in really quick here so that you can see things more clearly. Hopefully that's a little bit better for you. And right here inside section 4 is where we're going to find this information that I'm talking about. Now I'm going to scroll through some stuff that's not exactly pertaining to what we're talking about, but when I get to the sections that we're talking about, we're going to read through it. Now, as a reminder, in this video, I'm just going to be reading through it and doing little bits of explanation, and we're going to deep dive in the future. So if there's anything along the way that doesn't make sense to you that I don't cover, make sure you drop a comment in the comments because I'm going to be reading those in order to decide what I'm going to make a video on explaining next. Okay, so let's get into it. This section is recovery as a debt to Her Majesty. First off, a debt to Her Majesty. The way that this works is that in Canadian law, oftentimes it's referred to Her Majesty so that the Canadian government can own property and actually be seen as a legal person, and they describe that as Her Majesty. So when they say debt to Her Majesty or they refer to Her Majesty, that just means that you owe Canada. What a messed up system, right? And it says, the amount of the erroneous payment or overpayment as determined by the minister constitutes a debt due to Her Majesty as of the day on which the amount was paid, and the debt is payable and may be recovered by the minister as of the day the minister determined the amount of the erroneous payment or overpayment. So this is saying if they find out that you owe immediately as soon as they find out that you owe. And the next part's going to get into how they could take this money from you. The first way here is garnishment from a financial institution. It says the minister may, by a notice served personally or by a confirmed delivery service, order a financial institution, as defined in section 2, blah, 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 that holds or maintains a deposit account for a person who is indebted to Her Majesty under this act to pay to the receiver general from the deposit account all or part of the amount in respect of which the person is indebted to Her Majesty under this act on account of the person's liability to Her Majesty. All of this is just saying that if you owe money, they can go directly into your bank account and pull it out. They don't have to wait for you to send it to them. And the next way they can take the money is through garnishment from an employer. It says the minister may, by a notice served personally or by a confirmed delivery service, order the employer of a person who is indebted to Her Majesty under this act to pay to the Receiver General from the remuneration that would be otherwise payable by the employer to the person all or part of the amount in respect of which the person is indebted to Her Majesty under this act on account of the person's liability to Her Majesty. Man, what a mouthful. It's like they make these intentionally hard to understand. But what I make of this is that if you owe them money and there's nothing in your account, they can go to your employer and say, hey, instead of paying that dude, he owes me, you've got to pay me, the country. I'm not going to read this entire section because basically what it's saying is that the debt is owed after they give you notice that there's a debt owed. It's pretty self-explanatory. You're going to owe it as of the day after they give you the notice if you owe money. I'll keep scrolling down a little bit here and we get to the discharge of liability section. And it's crazy how redundant some of this stuff is. What I make of this section is just saying that once you pay back the money, that is a sufficient discharge of the original liabilities of the person to the extent of the payment. So it's saying that if you pay them money, then you no longer owe them. Well, duh. But I guess they need to be this specific. This next part is actually pretty interesting. It says reconsideration of applications. So this determines how long they could potentially claw back this money if they determine that you've applied ineligibly. It says, subject to subsection 5, the minister may reconsider an application for benefits under this act within 36 months after the benefits have been paid. So once 36 months or 3 years goes by, they can't ask you to give any of the money back that you've received. That's good to know. This next section called decision is basically just saying that as soon as they find out you owe money, they're required to give you notice that you owe money and they have to do the calculation of how much money you actually owe. If we scroll down here a little bit, we get to amount repayable. But the important part is the amount payable. So this is the other end of the stick. It says, if the minister decides that a person was entitled to receive money by way of the benefits under this act, and the money was not paid, the amount calculated under subsection 2 is payable to the person. This just means that if you were owed money and they mistakenly didn't give it to you, even though you're eligible, they are required to give it to you after the fact. In this extended time to reconsider claim, it says, if in the opinion of the minister a false or misleading statement or representation has been made in connection with an application for benefits under this act, the minister has 72 months within which to reconsider the application. This means that if your claim was knowingly fraudulent, like if you knew that you weren't eligible and you still applied, it expands to 6 years that they could potentially claw this money back. That's good to know, but I am sure that if you're watching this channel, you're not one of those people who has applied knowingly, fraudulently. I know you're here to get the most accurate information, so I'm guessing this won't apply to all of you guys. And now we're going to scroll down to this request for review section. This is where all the good stuff is. This section is pretty important because it gets into how you can dispute a claim if they're saying, hey, no, you're not eligible, we're not going to give you money for any of these benefits that are under this act. They're going to be required to review your individual situation and determine whether it is truly ineligible or if they made a mistake. They say that in this request for review, where they say a person who is the subject of a decision of the minister made under this act may make a request in the form and manner established by the minister to the minister for a review of that decision at any time within 30 days after the day on which they are notified of the decision or any further time that the minister may allow. Wow, did these guys never take third grade English where they told you not to make a run-on sentence? Jeez. To clarify that point, they say that for the purpose of this section, a decision of the minister includes the issuance of an order under subsection blah, 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 and the person to whom the order is served and the person who would not be paid an amount as the result of the issuance of the order are each deemed to be a person who is the subject of a decision of the minister. Again, more kind of redundant stuff. It's saying that if they make a decision about you, you are the person who can request this review. This section just says that the minister has to make these decisions and they have to review it if you ask them to. And they will come back with 3 options, either confirm, vary, or rescind the decision. So that just means that they'll either say, yep, we were right, it's the same as what we were saying, no, we were a little bit wrong, let's change it, or no, we were totally wrong, we're going to take away this decision, and it's totally the opposite. And right here, it's just saying that they need to tell you that this is the decision they came to. This section says that no action or proceedings are to be taken to recover money owing under this act after the expiry of the 6-year limitation. So again, it's saying that even if you applied fraudulently, they can't take action against you after 6 years. This deduction set off or compensation section, the way that I'm understanding it is that if you owe money, then they can take it away from any benefits that you could be getting under this act or otherwise. So if they determine that you're not qualified for one period and they require you to pay that money back and you are qualified for another period, then they could just deduct that money you owe from the money they're about to give you, if that makes sense. Then they get into some stuff about acknowledging your liability to pay this back, but we can get into that another time because it gets a little bit in depth. But what we do want to get into is this interest payable section. So interest payable, it says that it is payable on any debt due to Her Majesty under subsection 8, bracket 2. However, no interest is payable on any debt due to Her Majesty under subsection 29, bracket 3, under section 38, and under any provision of this act as a result of an erroneous payment or overpayment. So this is again saying that if you apply fraudulently, there could be interest, but if you're not applying fraudulently and you just made a mistake, they're not going to charge you interest, they're just going to take back the money. And they're going to determine whether or not it was a fraudulent application if you commit a violation. And they say that a violation, in this section, they're calling it when you knowingly make, in relation to an application for a benefit under this act, a representation that is false or misleading. Representation just means that you said something that was false or misleading, or you claimed something by clicking a checkbox that wasn't true. Or it's a violation if you make an application for and receive a benefit under this act knowing that they are not eligible to receive it. And that's the same sort of thing. And the penalty for this, the minister may impose a penalty on a person if the minister is of the opinion that the person has committed a violation. So if they decide that, hey, we're pretty sure that you did this fraudulently, then they can kind of arbitrarily decide that you've committed a violation and you're going to have to pay back this money. But when we scroll down a little bit, we find out something that's actually pretty interesting that nobody's really talked about. And it says that the maximum penalty you can pay is 50% of the benefit that would have been paid out as a result of the violation. So if you knowingly apply fraudulently, then the maximum penalty you could pay would be half of whatever you received. So for the CRB, one period is $900, so that's half of that is $450. So your maximum penalty for that 2-week period would be $450. But remember, that's on top of actually paying back the benefit. So you'd pay back the $900 you got, and then on top of it, you pay $450, bringing you to $1,350 you'd have to pay back if they find out that you've knowingly applied fraudulently. I hope this is all making sense, and if it isn't, make sure to leave a comment down below and saying, hey, Russell, could you please clarify that thing? And I've been reading every single one, so I will get to it, and I'll try to make videos about the things that most people are struggling to understand here. And the maximum for these penalties is $5,000. So even if you apply for every single period fraudulently, there's a cap to how much penalty you're going to have to pay, and that's $5,000. And then they clarify once again that no penalty is going to go to you if you didn't know that you were making a mistake, or if you claim that you didn't know you were making a mistake. This is where it's a little bit gray area, because if somebody who applies fraudulently knows that all they have to do is say, hey, I didn't know, I didn't understand, and they won't have to pay a penalty, then why is this stuff even in here in the first place? Everyone will do that. And that covers the vast majority of what I wanted to touch on today, but there is more stuff deep in this bill that I've uncovered. So if you're interested in hearing about this stuff and knowing exactly what these kind of terms are and how they could affect you, make sure to hit those subscribe and notification bell, all that good stuff, so you can stay informed about this. But I want to know what you have to say. Was any of this news to you? Because I know when I read through it the first time, I was like, wow, why isn't the media reporting on what's actually inside the bill? I've got to think that other people other than just me are reading through the actual words of this, and if they are, why aren't they reporting on it? Let me know down in the comments. Am I just totally out of the loop and I didn't understand some of this stuff and they've been saying it all along? Or is this something that not too many people are talking about and it's news to you? Either way, let me know. And while you're down there, make sure to hit that like button, because I've been bringing updates like these every single day. And when you click that like button, it gives my channel more of a chance to be spread to people who could need to see this sort of information. So if you found any value in any of my videos, make sure to hit that big old thumb. But with all of that said, and all of those mouthfuls of words from that sort of legal jargon in there, I want to say thank you to you for watching this video. I really appreciate it, and I hope that you learned a little bit and it got you thinking about some things. Remember, leave me comments down below with any questions you have about it. And again, with that said, thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next time.